You're listening to the Party in the Back podcast with John Kudo. The Party in the Back podcast is brought to you by Mascot Link. Connect with your biggest fans now with Mascot Link. In-seat visits, VIP experiences, holiday deliveries, and paid scoreboard messages. Mascot Link's powerful software gives you the tools to create memories for fans while generating revenue for your team. Visit mascotlink.com. That's mascot-link.com to get started. Let's get the party started.
Welcome to the Party in the Back podcast. If sports marketing was a mullet, then the business in the front would be forecasting budgets and measuring ROI, but the Party in the Back would be mascots singing the national anthem, giant indoor blimps dropping prizes, and building a community for your fans. And we are here for that fun side of sports marketing on the Party in the Back. I'm your host, John Kudo, and we're pulling back the curtain on how the most memorable game day moments are made. For more than 35 years, I've been immersed in the world of sports presentation, from mascot performance to producing large-scale events. I've worked at the intersection of strategy and spectacle. I bring experience from college to the NBA and with brands like Nike and WWE. And now I'm focused on shaping the systems, the content, and the community that bring fan experiences to life here at GameOps.com. We're a hub for ideas, tools, and conversations in the game operations world. On this monthly podcast, we talk with the people building the fun side of sports, like fan activation, stadium storytelling, and creating lasting memories for fans. Today, we're joined by Erik the Peanut Guy Mertens. What started with a look at what you can learn by watching other sports really took a turn and became a discussion about setting the tone for your event, connecting the elements of your game and your show, and building a community for your fans. A really interesting and insightful talk with Erik, who is one of baseball's best hosts and has a great mind for fan engagement. Don't forget to check out the homepage on GameOps.com for featured content. Last month, we had a high five on the PWHL Takeover Tour in Detroit. Well, it was a busy day for me on March 28th. Following that PWHL game, I zipped down to Toledo and did a second high five review, 2 in one day, this time for a walleye game. There was a lot to learn from this ECHL team, who's also a sister club with the Toledo Mudhens. You want to read how the Toledo Walleye turned their hockey games into can't-miss shows by stacking fan-first elements that hook the audience and reels them in night after night. Plus, giant trikes, roller banners, and Simon Says all featured on the homepage at GameOps.com. Finally, we have a new tool from Mascot Link. Mascot Link is more than seat visits and holiday deliveries. They're offering scoreboard message management, a community appearance booking tool, and now you can turn your best moments into can't-miss bidding wars with Mascot Link auctions. They add urgency, competition, and a real fan energy to any experience. See how Mascot Link clients have generated revenue with jersey auctions and more. But let's get the party started with our guest, Erik the Peanut Guy. So joining us today, a repeat guest on the Party in the Back podcast, Erik Mertens, the Director of Fan Experience for the Dust Devils. He's a former, this is probably a career highlight. You know, you were a honorable mention for Best Entertainer, Best Entertainment Act in sports on our Best of Awards. And we had a chance to talk to you a couple times, and it's always been great. And I thought, hey, minor league baseball is ramping up. Let's get him back. He is better known across minor league baseball as the Peanut Guy. Welcome, Erik.
Thank you. It's good to see you again, John. And you're right. That runner-up honorary award is one of the highlights of my career.
Come on.
Unironically, it was great.
Come on. Well, you are one of the most recognizable and relentlessly creative voices in the game as an in-stadium host. And you making those moments in between innings, must-watch entertainment for the Tri-City Dust Devils, and I should note, for the Tri-City Americans as well. You work in the hockey. We're going to talk a little bit about that as we dive in a little deeper here. But you started in 2001 as a peanut vendor, And as somebody
Mhm.
who had a background in theater and in sports and is a bit of a performer, you leveraged that. And 3 years later, you were the de facto host for the team, and you've been growing that role ever since. So I'm thrilled to have you back, and I love your perspective on sports. You're also well traveled. Where are you going this year? I know every year you make a big
Yeah.
2 week trip.
Oh my gosh. Thanks for bringing that up. I love nothing more than traveling around the country to visit minor league ballparks. My goal in life was to hit all of them and all the major leagues. I finally got my last major league ballpark last year. Super excited. This year, if it all works out, I will have visited all professional affiliated minor league ballparks.
No
So my
kidding.
travels this year are all spread out because I only have 7 left. So it's like 1 here, 3 here, 2 here, and I'm trying to do it on a budget this year. So yeah, we're going to some California, some Utah, some East Coast. I'm bringing my mom. I'm bringing my wife on some of them. So it's kind of sporadic, but I'm excited.
That's fantastic. I
Yeah.
You're going to join Ben Hill as Ben everywhere.
Yeah, Erik everywhere does not have the same
Does
ring to
not,
it.
does not. But
He's
we'll
he's
we'll
my
take it.
idol. So yeah,
Ben's awesome. We love having him on the podcast, and you bring such a wealth of knowledge because, like you, he's making those trips, taking notes, and he's just a factor of insight. So shout out to our friend Ben Hill. Let's
love you,
let's
Ben.
dive in a little bit. I'm sorry, were you gonna?
I just said love you, Ben. He
Yeah,
needs
more
to
more
hear it.
praise for Ben. We'll take it. We'll
Yeah,
take it.
yeah.
So let's dive in a little bit. We did talk a bit, kind of entry level discussion when we last talked in January of 2025. We'll put a link up to that podcast as well. Anybody who wants a little bit more can listen to that as well. But as a host who works in 2 different sports, hockey and baseball, there's obviously really different pacing. And you got into a little bit about you had some great insights about how like hockey in game you may have 10 seconds to set up a promotion. And so you don't have the luxury of really introducing somebody,
Mhm.
telling us their name, which of the Tri Cities they're from, and just
Yeah.
finding that connection. You got to boom, you got to get right to it. But also contrasting that, even in hockey, where then in intermission, may have more time, you can kind of talk it through, take your time, take a breath. I want to hear a little bit more about that. Like how is, when you're looking at your script before a game, how much of that is you really diving in saying like, where do I have time and where can I
Yeah.
set the pace slower and tell a broader story?
That's a great question. I'm so grateful for you and your show because you dive into these things that those of us in sports entertainment, I think we think about all the time, but we don't articulate them to anyone else because oftentimes we're the only ones. If you're a mascot or an on-field host, there's really there's only 1 or 2 of you in your city, so maybe 2 or 3 depending on the size of your city. So this is great, man. I've been spending a lot of time thinking about that. My roots are thanks to my dad. Growing up, he signed my sister and me up for like speech competitions, so public speaking. And then I was in a rock band for 8 years where I was a mediocre lead singer, but really fun hype man. So, so my roots are like hype man, you know, public speaking. You did say I was in theater. That's thanks to my sister's influence. She's really into theater. Um, so I'm always thinking about this stuff. This is my 25th season with the Dust Devils. It's our 25th anniversary. Super proud of that. Super excited. I've only been with the hockey team for 4 years. And so my roots are still rock band, baseball, and I'm still learning about the pacing of other sports. I also MC, like wedding receptions and expos and trade shows. So I try to be flexible and adaptable. But to get to your question, I thoroughly enjoy the baseball pacing more. Again, I'm probably biased because I've been doing it much more. Baseball is my favorite sport. This is kind of how I grew up. But in hockey, it's either feast or famine. You either have 10 seconds to do a hit, and it's just during stoppage time. So depending on the officials, you don't know when or how long or what's going on. So you just got to do your best to blurt out something, but make it engaging and exciting. Or like you said, during the intermissions, we have 5 to 7 minutes maybe, so it's either this really long form storytelling during intermissions, or this almost no storytelling in 10 seconds. Um, and and a lot of those quick hits are just announcing a winning seat or winning row. And I know different hockey teams do it differently, but at least in the Tri-City Americans operation, it's we're either saying, hey, the lucky seat who wins a Dairy Queen coupon is this guy sitting in this seat, or a birthday kid of the night. So it's mostly like, here they are, make some noise for them. That's all it is. And then for the intermissions, we can introduce the contestants. So anyway, this is the time of year now. Hockey ended for me in March. Baseball immediately started on April 3rd, so there wasn't a lot of time in between. And it usually takes me a game or two to remember the differences, or at least internalize them. With the Dust Devils, I'm so blessed because we have the in-between inning breaks. Those are about 60 seconds. We have to run off, do our thing in 60 seconds, and get off in 60 seconds. But the Dust Devils also trust me enough. Some could argue whether they should or not. I get to walk around with this wireless microphone, and I can say anything at any time. Now, I've been taught and I've learned over a quarter century when you can and can't say something, what's appropriate. You do not call out a player or an umpire, during play. That is a big red line. But in between pitches or during pitching changes, I can jump on the mic. Most of the time, I lean into that hype man where I try to get crowds cheering. But I've noticed the past month or so in baseball, I can try to be more funny. Like the pacing lends itself to some more humor. Now, again, some might say I'm not funny. That's something I'm working on. But I can at least try. You have dynamics in baseball, whereas in hockey, it's cranked to 11 all the time. That's probably the biggest difference.
Those are, you said a bunch of important things there. That's a great answer.
I probably said too much.
No, it's great because you fed me like 12 different questions that I can add to my list here. But the first thing I'll add is that you touched on something at the end there about comedy and you're interjecting yourself. And that's something that I see more and more often now as people program their game out. Comedy's hard. And it's actually getting harder, I think, as there's sensitivities about everything now that weren't there. I think about skits that I did 25 years ago, and I'm like, oh my God, I would be fired today. And
Yeah.
at the time, it wasn't even like pushing the envelope. It was just like, oh yeah, like that's what we're doing. And so again, navigating that can be difficult, but it's so hard. And then to find the right vehicle for it, I think is hard. And so when you have somebody who kind of can find that line and poke at it a little bit, because that's what comedy is. And we have a really fun water cooler post about what comedy is. And essentially it's finding the place that's uncomfortable, essentially. But again, if it's too uncomfortable, then it's bad. And so it's navigating that is really, really tricky. I need to make a note to add that post to our link here because it's a really clever. I think the guy talks about, he's like, if I'm in a room and I have a coworker, no, I'm gonna botch this. I shouldn't even go there.
I'm excited to read it now.
I'm gonna post it now because I'm gonna botch it. It's something essentially like if I tickle myself, it's not very funny. But if I tickle my teammate, it's kind of funny because it's more dangerous, essentially. So it's finding the Venn diagram of where those points meet. So that's the hack in me attempt at telling you what it's all about. Anyway, I'll add that link so someone more articulate than me can share it. I also wanted to note, as you said that, about the rock band. I just think about that piece where, as the lead singer, and the song ends, and they tell the little story, whether it's about the song, and it's such a great moment that you noted because as like an MC, it's the same thing. You're trying to connect that last song to the next song, and bring the people along for a ride. Or in your case, you're as a host, you might be trying to connect, hey, there was a home run in the last inning, and now I'm doing this brief promo for a home security system. And like merging those things and like in the moment, the value is being able to connect those pieces and take people on a ride, yet connect all those things so the story makes sense and flows. So
100%.
you had so many great pieces in that answer that I think can help people understand like that nuance. Oh, and the last one I was going to say is, and you mentioned this right at the jump, is like we're in this venue right now in this podcast talking about this, and it's valuable. And I think about the NBA mascot community, which I've been lucky to be a part of for a long time. And I remember early on just how incredibly valuable it was because I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anybody who was a professional mascot. And
Yes.
to find somebody who's in that business has the same problems you do, whether it's the day to day in the office or on the court or in the crowd. And that's why I love those conversations with people who like can connect, really get what you do. You can tell your
Yes.
story to anybody about what you do, and they'll be like, "Oh, that's kind of cool." And you're like, "What would I do in this case?" And they're not going to know because it's
I don't know. Yeah.
such a niche thing. So I
Yeah.
love that community and that conversation. I'm glad we can have it here with you.
Too.
So,
Well,
um,
thank you for your show and all the work and energy you put into this podcast and the website. Because when I first stumbled across it, and it might have been because of Ben Hill, I'm trying to remember when I first heard of you and all the work you do. I was like, finally, there's a place online, there's a podcast I can listen to where they're speaking my language, maybe even using words I've never said out loud, but I've thought,
mm, yeah,
that's what that means, or that's what I'm trying to express. Um, there's one guy in the Tri-Cities who I can connect with. He was the arena host for the Tri-City Americans before me, and
okay,
he did it for a long time. He's amazing. His name's Jeff Jacobs. He owns a radio broadcasting company called Jacobs Radio. So he stepped back to focus on that. But whenever I see him now, he will come up and say encouraging things, or he'll say, "Have you ever thought of this?" or something I learned. And it's totally like a mentor coach relationship, very positive. And he is literally the only other person here in my community that I feel gets it.
yeah.
And a blessing is because of my travels, I've been able to connect with other hosts, especially in baseball. And I've jotted down contact info. I've followed them on Instagram, and we have some really cool conversations. But that community aspect for us is really
Mm.
important.
It really is. And again, you just see something. Again, that host is going to see something that you did that
Yeah.
no Joe fan is going to see
Mhm.
and share. I do love it. I love when mascots come and see what I do. Not that it's good or bad, but they're going to see things that just most people won't see that really make a difference and move the needle. Um, when we talked earlier, you talked about setting the tone. You talked about trying to like take the energy that is given to you and either redirect it or harness it in the direction that you want. And you talked about that
Mhm.
junior hockey energy where it's very aggressive and it's kind of like it in some ways you have to redirect that and be like, okay, well, we're not going to like direct our anger at this, but we're going to direct that
Yeah.
energy and that excitement in a different way.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then in contrary, how baseball, you almost need to draw fans in because they're so passive. And so
Yes.
I wanted to hear more from you about how in those specific settings you can redirect that tone. And the note I put was kind of set the tone. It was essentially at the beginning of the game. Maybe it's your introduction, maybe it's at the top of the first one. You get all the fans in there, where you're really
Yes.
thinking about how you're projecting and what tone you're setting for the night. Is it always the same, or do you set a different tone on a Tuesday night than you would a Sunday night?
What a great question, John. And it's very timely because, like I mentioned before we started recording, my voice is a little hoarse right now because we just ended a 6 game homestand yesterday. And it ended on a Sunday afternoon game. It was pretty hot here in the Tri Cities yesterday and today. And so people who came out were pretty lethargic. It was a beautiful, warm Sunday afternoon. People wanted to sit and watch a game, drink a beer. And I needed to acknowledge that internally, but then I need through my communication with the crowd. It was different than the sellout Friday night we had when it was all like dance parties. We did so many things in the stands. We cranked up the music. It was a 9 inning party, bringing the community together at our hometown ballpark. And yesterday was more like hey, this is a relaxed Sunday afternoon. Yes, we can have fun, but it's going to be fun in a different way. We tried to do a dance off yesterday, and I knew going into this. I even talked to my team, our promo team. I was like, I don't know how this is going to go, but screw it, let's try it. Where we did a dance off between two sections, and almost no one stood up to participate. But I did not badger them because of it. I mean, people were sweating. The moms were holding their kids, but those who did want to participate did, and so it was fun. But we didn't like really zone in on that on that mentality. So there's that point for day versus day, atmosphere versus atmosphere. But I also have some thoughts about when you said setting the tone.
I'm gonna jump in right there because I think that what you just
Yeah.
said is so smart. Where it's reading the room. It's kind of like what's the vibe tonight, and I think
Mhm.
you gave kind of like the standard like well a Sunday afternoon is going to be more mellow than a Friday night. Kind of like yeah probably, but like
Of
night to
course.
night you might just have like a heat wave, which again might take a Friday night way down because people are like
Yeah.
no man I just want to sip my beer and just chill out.
Yeah.
I'm not going to get up and dance because it's 95, and
Yes.
so reading the room and I know. I think a lot about as people write scripts. You're writing it 2 days before. Sometimes you're not honed in on the weather. You're not honed in
No.
on current events. What happened in the morning? What happened at night? What just happened
Yep.
to your team? And just being able to on the fly, and as somebody in your role, in that host role, almost be able to like take all that information in and make those little shifts because first of all, it's going to work better. Like you said, the dance off's going
Yeah.
to work better when they want to dance, but it's
Yep.
also like your credibility. If you're asking them to do
Mm.
something you know
Oh,
they're not
dude.
going to do, then
100%.
it that's just going to hurt you down the road.
Yes. One of the worst things I think an MC could do is that cringe moment we've all seen where someone will come out on stage or at a sporting event and say, "How's everyone doing?" And they might have a smattering of applause, right? And then they say, "I can't hear you," and you're just like forcing what's not there, and your audience will be resentful for
Yeah,
that,
no,
and
you,
they
you heard
automatically
me.
say,
You heard me
"This
perfectly
guy
well.
doesn't." Yeah, this. We told you how we're doing. We're at
Yes.
like a 4 out of 10. Like that's not our fault. Don't try to make us an 11 out of 10 when we're being authentic. Yeah, but that kind of goes to your other great question of setting a tone. Um, and you brought up last time we talked. Uh, I'm still kind of new to the junior hockey world, and again, it might just be our local team. Maybe it's the whole industry, but a lot of aggression, a lot of yelling at the officials and the other team. It's kind of, I don't know if I'd call it angry, but it's kind of amped up aggression. Um, and maybe that's just the atmosphere. But what I do in my first hit every hockey game is I immediately go as positive as I can and I smile. I'm on camera. They introduce me. Hey, here's Erik the Peanut Guy. And I immediately say, kind of how I start all my games, baseball or hockey, is I say, hey, Tri Cities, how we feeling tonight? And then whatever they say, I let it go. Again, I don't say, I can't hear you. Um, and then after they cheer, I will say, I love you. I love you guys. Thanks so much for coming. And I want them to feel appreciated. I want the tone to be set positively. And I say, let's cheer for our guys. Let's have a good time. But it's with a smile and it's with acknowledging that we're having fun tonight. This is not a night to be angry or aggressive. And and so I've seen over the past few years of working with the hockey team, I've seen slight changes where maybe the vibe is starting to shift incrementally towards yes, we can still have fun. Yes, we can be loud, but maybe a little bit less of the aggression, less of the anger. And I don't know if it's my job to sway that completely. But I've felt happy that there's more of a positive vibe. So that's hockey. And then with baseball, it's setting that tone too. I say the same opening line. I say, "Hey, Tri Cities, how we feeling tonight?" And when they're cheering, I say, "I love you. I love you. Thanks so much for coming out." Something that our manager taught me, and this is the head coach of the baseball team. He doesn't think about promotions. He doesn't think about game entertainment. He's thinking about winning these games. He's a veteran. He's been around for decades. He's kind of a hard-nosed, no BS baseball manager. He told me once, he said, "Hey, can you be careful acknowledging if it's too hot or too cold? I want my boys to think it's a perfect day for baseball, any game." And I was so grateful he said that. That was just last year. And I thought, oh my gosh, I've never had a manager give me constructive criticism like that. And I'm so glad he did because I thought, well, the fans are probably thinking that too. And so yesterday, again, it was very hot, but it was a bright blue sky. People were there. They wanted to be there. So I thought of what he said. I said, folks, thanks for coming out. It's a perfect day for baseball. Look at this blue sky. Let's have a great time. And so that sets the tone, um, not just for the players, but for the fans too. So starting it off setting that tone with excitement. Look at us. Thanks so much for being here. I usually say give yourself a nice round of applause so that they cheer for themselves. Because people are, I mean, and I mean this, people are spending their hard earned money, especially nowadays, to do something they don't need to do, but they want to have fun with their family and friends. And so it's my job literally to say, thank you. Thanks for supporting our team. Thank you for spending your hard earned money. My job is to make sure you have that fun that you're expecting.
That is incredible. The head coach. As you're saying,
Yeah.
I'm like, what's he gonna say? I do
Yeah.
love when you get those nuggets from somebody where it's unexpected. But that's such a key thing. And I love it in the context too. He was honest with you. It's for my players. I don't want them to be like, oh, it's too cold to play. It's gonna hurt my
Yeah.
hands if I swing, or it's too
Yeah.
hot to play. I'm gonna run out of gas. He just said, set the tone.
Yep.
Oh, that's
100%.
amazing.
And I
Perfect day for
remember,
baseball.
I remember he came up to me once because it was a cold day. And I think I acknowledged, and when I do my intros for the ball games, I'm right in front of the home dugout.
Mm,
So the players are like the closest to me, leaning on the dugout rail, watching me, even though I'm mostly addressing the fans above
right.
them. But I remember that game. I said, "Yo, folks, it's kind of a chilly night. I know. So thanks so much for bundling up, and we'll get through it," kind of thing. And he was the one that said, "Don't say that." Like,
Oh,
yeah, yeah, it is cold. Everyone knows it is. So either don't acknowledge it, or maybe spin it a little bit where it's like, "Hey, we're going to have fun. We're at a
yeah.
ballpark. It's
Yeah.
it's a great day." Yeah.
Let's play too.
Bill Veck said, "It isn't enough for a promotion to be entertaining or even amusing. It must create conversation." We follow that conversation at the GameOps.com water cooler. Monday through Friday, look at a moment created by a sports team and see how it got fans talking. These daily posts are a great way to kickstart some creative thinking for your own show. Look for the water cooler text scroll on our homepage or follow us on Twitter for the daily update. The Party in the Back podcast is brought to you by the store at GameOps.com, the home of game operations tools and toys like prize shoots, chuck-a-pucks, t-shirt launchers, and confetti. Make your show scream with everything you need. Available now at thestore.gameops.com.
My next thing was to tell the story. And in some ways, that is it right there. You you're at an event that's going to unfold. It's just
Hmm.
going to happen in front of you. But in some ways, you kind of narrate that first paragraph where it's like, it's a
Yes.
perfect day for baseball. And like, let's find out what happens together. And I
Yes.
think that's such a fun, sharp way to get people engaged and almost in the right mindset. Like they're if they go, this is perfect for baseball. Like I thought it was hot
Yeah.
out, but this is going to be
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
That's such a great tone setting piece. I also I wanted to shout you out because I think about this. We have a host in town here. Shout out to our friend Grover, Andrew Grover, who does some hosting for the Cleveland Monsters and the Lake County Captains.
Oh,
And
right on.
he's great. And Grover is a really interesting personality because to me, because he's super, super authentic. He will just have these heartfelt, and I know Grover, and
Hmm.
he has these heartfelt moments where he's just like, I I believe in you that you're gonna carry us through this. And he says things, what you just said, like I think of a lot of hosts that I know who couldn't really tell the crowd I love you. That's just not
Yeah.
doesn't come out the right with the right tone. Not the right tone,
Yeah.
but it wouldn't feel right. But Grover says that. Like I love you, I love what you're doing. And I think authenticity is so paramount in a role like a host.
Hmm.
And by extension, a drum line, a mascot, a dance team, like you have to be who you are because that's the
Yeah.
easiest thing to sniff out if you're a fan. And so
Yeah.
I love that you had that awareness about who you are and how you want to greet people, how you want that story to unfold. I think that's a really powerful thing. And then the next thing I wrote was awareness, having awareness of what the crowd wants and what they, you're pushing them towards a certain feeling. But
Yeah.
also, like you said, I got to feel that. I got to kind of feel where they're at. Maybe it's been a long week and you can tell when you ask them how they're doing, there's no energy.
Yep.
I got a
Yep.
little bit bigger hill to climb, or maybe I don't have a hill to climb as much as I just can't demand something of them that they're not going to be able to
Yeah.
give me. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. You just reminded me. So I started working for the Dust Devils when I was a senior in high school. And the year before that, I was on the student government at Kennewick High. Go Lions. Um, and there was a leadership camp in Washington State. It's in the Cascade Mountains, kind of by Mount Rainier, Mount Adams, um, where the different student governments from the local public high schools around Washington will go, and they'll spend a week, and you learn leadership skills. And that year, I happened to be the only one from my high school that was available to go. So I went, and they taught servant leadership, which I then studied in college, which is amazing. It's a style of leadership where you lead from the back and you serve others, not demand things from others. Um, and it's a lot more than that, but that's probably a quick way to say it. And I remember um, I talked to one of the camp counselors because I said, almost everyone here is like the school president or the class vice president. They're like the leaders of the student government of their respective high schools. I was not. I was only the public address announcer. I would do the daily announcements. I would MC all of our pep assemblies. That's kind of how I got my start. I'm grateful for that. And I remember telling this camp counselor, like, I don't know what I can do. I'm not the president. I'm not the vice president. And he looked at me and said, what do you do? I said, well, every day I do the announcements. And I said, so you are the one voice they hear every day, every student in the school? I said, yeah. And he said, oh my gosh, Erik, you have more ability to spread love and to lead and to serve others than the president and vice president do. And I didn't get it at first, but he said, how do you sign off your publicity announcements every day, your school announcements over the PA system? I said, I don't really have a sign off. But we were learning again about servant leadership and about loving others. And it was not a faith-based camp, but as someone active in ministry, I saw a lot of correlation. And so I started, thanks to his advice, ending all of my daily announcements saying, I love you guys. And I meant it. Like, I genuinely loved my classmates and my schoolmates. And it's a big public high school. It's not like a tiny school. And so I would tell thousands of students every day, like, I love you guys. I love you, And I that's I kind of forgotten about that until a few years ago. And I decided I need to start saying that when I'm emceeing sporting events now for thousands of community members every day or every other day.
Wow. I the first thing I wrote was just the sign off. And I know some teams have that. You think about every radio broadcast, every radio broadcaster signs off the same way. And
Yeah.
sometimes it sounds like a cliche trademark, but in a lot of times it's just like it's from the core, and it also ties a bow on everything. And I just wonder, I don't know the answer to this, how many teams have a moment where they sign you off in the same way, in the same tradition?
Yeah. I know so I used to write our PA script for the Dust Devils the past 2 years. This year I do not. One of my teammates does. Our sign off is something like, and this is the PA announcer
Yeah.
in the script, not my sign off. I might have a different one every night now that I think about it. But our PA announcer will say, drive home safely, and as always, go Dust Devils. And that I kind of like that because it ties in, like, remember, like, we're fans of this team, like, thanks for coming. Even after we lose, even after a loss, he will say the same thing, go Dust Devils. So that's kind of a nice thing. But yeah, maybe I need to think about my sign. I have to sign in every day.
Yeah.
I know that.
So last time we spoke, you quoted someone named Andy Billick, and I don't remember exactly what his title was. I think he's with one of the teams, right?
Andy Billig is amazing. He is the vice president of Brett Sports.
There it is.
Who own a bunch of minor league teams. Yeah.
Okay. And he said, he essentially was pointing you in the right direction, saying that you're here to help build community.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot, I told you I have these little hooks that hit me every once in a while, that just kind of like refocus my brain. And that one keeps coming back. I think it was what we talked about on our January 2025 edition, was building community. And it is just so important because teams, and we have a water cooler we'll discuss in a little bit. That's part of what they're doing, is they're building this community of fandom. And having the host have that nugget in their head where they're like, everything I'm doing has to all connect to that. And that as you do that, you're building, obviously, it's a business. You're building, someone going to buy that next
Yeah.
ticket. But
Right.
also you're building credibility so that when you ask them something, when you demand something of them, they know you're with them. You're their
Yes.
leader in a way.
Yeah.
Or you're one of the people who leads the community. What can you share about like how that thought process works for you and how much does that play into every game, or is this kind of like a
Yeah.
broader piece where you remind yourself once in a while, like, oh yeah, this is part of what we're doing here is making sure that the Tri-Cities we're all in on this.
Yeah. Oh gosh, man, I love talking about this stuff. Like I referenced, I worked in full-time ministry for 15 years, and now I work in full-time sports entertainment. Over the past 25 years, they've come and gone, summer jobs, church camps, baseball games. They've always kind of melded together for me. But I think what makes it work is that sense of community. That's what you do in ministry, and that's what you do in sports entertainment. And God bless Andy Billig for teaching me that when I was first starting out. Um, I With hockey, it's a little different because I don't work there full time. I just show up for the games, and I'm mostly walking around the outer concourse and just going into the inner seating bowl for hits, which kind of stinks because I don't get to interact with my community as much. Um, with baseball, it's a lot easier for me, and maybe that's a challenge. Maybe I need to try harder or try new things with hockey. But I mean, I'm from here. I'm a Tri Cities kid. My family moved here when I was 6. I'm a fan first. I generally am a fan first. So I literally see myself at the same level as everyone sitting in the seats. Um, Thinking about Dust Devils baseball games, there are 3 things I do very intentionally that I think might help with this. Number one is I greet everyone at the front gate. I try to be at the front gate greeting people when they come in. And I juggle, so I always have something to do. If there's a lull in the action, I can do something. But I give high fives, I give hugs, especially our season ticket holders or our regulars that I see so much. Many of whom are older, so I'll give some hugs. They kind of feel like grandparents, and little kids. So I try to greet people when they come in, and we've grown that. This season, we're building one of our best section leaders or ushers last year. He's about my age. His name is Jason. We're trying to use him more as like a counterpart to me. So I'll be at one of the gates, and he'll be at the other. And he's great with kids. So we're really trying to have these touches when people come in. That's number one, to build a community. Number two is that if I can during the game, I'll take a break and sit down in a section with some fans. So if I know I have a hit in 2 more outs and the entrance gate to the field is below section C, I'll go sit in section C for those 2 outs. You know what I mean? And I'll chit chat and I'll have fun. And sometimes kids will come up and want to hang out, or one of the adults will say something funny. So I sit down for a few minutes with them, and I do that around the ballpark. And then the third one is a little trick I learned when I was in a band or when I MC. I used to MC like youth conventions, or like I said, wedding receptions. When I'm on a stage, if I know someone in the audience or in the crowd, and I'm saying something like "Let's clap those hands" or "Let's get up and dance," or I'm saying "Let's do something," and I recognize someone who's doing it, I will shout them out by name. I'll be like, "Let's go, Margaret. There's Margaret. Look at her. She's doing it." And she'll wave and she has fun because Margaret and I generally know each other because we see each other at the front gates every day. And then if I'm sitting on the other side of the ballpark, if I'm a fan, I'm saying, "Oh, that host knows Margaret. Oh, he knows us." Like, this is a community. It's not just someone putting on a show for a bunch of strangers. So those are 3 things I intentionally try to do every game. And I'm sure there are a bunch more. I would love to learn what other hosts do, what other mascots or performers do. Those are just 3 little things I try to do.
Those are great. The number one, the front gate greeting, all that said to me was that's how you greet somebody who came to your house. You know what I mean? It's like it's
Yeah.
not it's like you're just creating a community. You're creating these are friends coming to hang out with me because they're my friends. And that's again, that's the hook of the community. That's like part of that process is building that trust where you're so much a part of it's like family. I mean, that's how you greet
Yeah.
family when they come to the house.
Yeah.
The sit in the section thing is awesome. And again, it's hard. But
Yeah.
most hosts are really by nature pretty affable folks. So it's like you can
Yeah.
squeeze that in. I love that. I will say I'm gonna extend your trick a little bit. Because you
Please.
said if I know somebody, I'm gonna shut them up by name. I've had this epiphany, if you will. I do a lot of game reviews, and there's times where I'm watching a game and there is a stat in sports that when you go to a game, it varies greatly by market. When you go to a game, half the people in the building, that's their one game this year. Okay. And again,
Wow.
it varies greatly.
Wow.
You may like hockey is a little more condensed where they have more fans who come on a regular basis. But again,
Mm.
for the most part, most of the fans are coming. This is their one time. And
Wow.
so, Eric, it's so important. Look, when you start the show, what do you say? I'm Eric the Peanut Guy. Because you
Yeah.
have to tell people who you are because they're not all they're not all family yet, but they're gonna be.
Right.
And
Right.
so one of the things that I've noticed amongst teams that I watch, especially I'll go to a game review and I'll watch a team. I don't know their stuff. I don't know who these people
Yeah.
are. And so when they're talking about their hype team, they have to tell me what they're named. And
Yeah.
they have to
Yeah.
tell me what the mascot's name is. And you have to use those names over and over again to set it into people. And so I always like that trick. What I would say too is even if you don't know somebody, I'm going to shout out the drum team, but I'm
Yeah.
going to do it by name because it's a branding statement that you're telling people. And also, you're telling that their names are important. And
Yeah.
just that to me, that's a little trick to keep branding. There's this, I watch a lot of pro wrestling and have been involved in the business in various ways. And one of the things Vince McMahon, the famous WWF promoter and WWE promoter, did is he said, "We don't use pronouns. If you ever watch
Mm.
a wrestling match, they don't ever
Yeah.
say he threw him into the ropes. They're always saying JBL
Mhm.
threw Eddie Guerrero into the ropes. They always
Whoa.
use their names because they're like,
Whoa.
that name is a brand. It has value. So you would
Yeah.
never reference your dance team by anything other than their exact name because you're
That-
building that brand. And to that end, you should be doing that not just when you announce them the one time they're going to dance. You should be doing that every time they throw t-shirts, every time you point to them in the crowd. And that
Yeah.
trick, I love the trick where you're bringing others into the event. But
Mhm.
if you don't know anybody or just as part of that, you should be using that. Get rid of the
The other
pronouns, get
direction.
rid of the points, and give them by name. And so I think
Wow.
that's a really important part. And again, it's the same thing as building a community. I want you to know all the people in my family. Yeah, I want you to
Yeah.
know the
Yeah.
names of the people in my family. So such a
Mm.
great trick. And it's also like there's a branding component upon that I think is important as well.
Thank you for teaching me that. That is incredible. And it clicks. Um, the Dust Devils were with Brett Sports and Andy Billig,
Hmm.
with that ownership group for 20 years. Last year, we were sold to another ownership group, Diamond Baseball Holdings. I've thoroughly enjoyed working with our new owners because one of the things that they came out with this past offseason for all the teams they own is you have characters at your ballpark, and character is not like a derogatory term. You have people at your ballpark that your fans will know. Most of them are the mascots
Hmm.
or the on-field hosts.
Yep.
Those are two faces that they see every game. The players can be characters, but like you mentioned in minor league baseball, they come and go a lot. But also our section leaders, our ushers, are characters. Um, and because of our owner's encouragement in that, I came up with this idea straight from my days in a rock band. And we've done it twice so far for in between inning promotion, and it's gone really well. Um, we we have a head groundskeeper named Michael Angel, and he after me, he's the second longest tenured Dust Devils employee. He's been here for 23 years. So everyone knows Michael. He's an award-winning groundskeeper, hardworking guy. Just will give the salt of the earth kind of guy. He's not very talkative, keeps his nose to the grindstone kind of guy, but he makes our field look amazing. We play baseball in the desert. We need a great head groundskeeper. Um, and so it reminded me when our ownership said, use your characters more in your game presentation. I remember when I was in the band, I was the lead singer, so I was the front man. My best friend Putty was the guitarist. We were the two up front. Our drummer was stuck in the back. His name is Dan. Great guy. Reminds me of Michael. He was salt of the earth, hard worker, not very loud. So once a concert, we'd get him out in front and we'd have Dan's joke corner where he would just tell really bad one-liner dad jokes and have everyone clap for him. And that was like our break in between songs. So we tried. I had this crazy idea. I had to ask our leadership for permission. They said, "All right, let's try it." We're now having Michael's joke corner on the dugout, once a homestand, where this head groundskeeper, whom everyone knows and loves, but doesn't really get to hear from, will tell really bad dad jokes for 30 seconds. And the crowd goes crazy because everyone knows him. They know who Michael is. They've known for 23 years. If you come to more than one Dust Devils game, every now and then. Um, and we give him kind of the limelight. And again, we're introducing our family
Yes.
to these fans,
Yes.
whether or not they've ever, and if it's your first Dust Devils game, now all of a sudden you realize that the award-winning head groundskeeper also tells jokes and chuckles at himself and gets a standing ovation. So that's one little thing that was kind of a combination of our ownership group encouraging us to use our characters more, and then me remembering stupid things we would do in our rock band.
And maybe most importantly there, shout out to your ownership group who just said, let's try it. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that might be the most important phrase in a good show is like an
Yeah.
organization who like, let's try it. And like, who knows, it might bomb out. Who knows? You never know.
You had that water cooler about the mascot who sang the national anthem.
Yeah, yeah. Dusty.
I think it was the Tucson
The
Roadrunners.
Tucson Roadrunners. Yep.
Yeah, it was
So
incredible.
yeah,
Yeah,
I'll summarize it real quick. Dusty was like in an off-season meeting, they were like, "Hey, what if we had Dusty sing the anthem?" He's a mascot, of course, he doesn't sing. And they were
yep.
like, "Yeah," and he would just like act like the microphone's broken and that kind of thing. And they were like, "Oh, that's kind of fun." And they just had a moment with it and just pitched it around. And on the day of a game, their anthem singer got stuck in traffic or something happened, and they're like 20 minutes out. They had no plan B. They had no one else who could sing. They're like, what about that goofy idea with Dusty? And they're like,
Yes.
let's try it. And so 20 minutes later, he's in front of the crowd trying it. And
Yeah,
again, it's a cute moment. The fans, and it wasn't, I think it came off in a way that wasn't like disrespectful. Um,
100%. Yeah,
and but again, it's that playful Tuesday night where you're like, why not? Let's just try
right.
it. Let's try something different, try something fun.
Yeah,
And so actually I spoke with him about it, and it might just be like a recurring once a year thing where he
yes,
has his moment. And again, once you do that, you set that tone where there might be like a different angle that next year or what happened or a different playful turn to it. But I think that attitude of, yeah, why not? Let's just try it. Let's see what happens. I think that's a really important
yeah.
part of that. The great story about Mike and telling the jokes and again making him feel like part of the family. Like, and that's a really
Mhm.
important piece. And telling everyone his name. That's important too.
Yeah,
We were
yeah.
going to, Eric, we're going to talk about all these other promotions. We had two other questions. I don't know if we have time.
Oh yeah, I'm very long-winded. I'm sorry.
No, it's
I have
great. It's
time, but we don't
awesome.
want to
It
bore
was
everyone.
awesome information. And you know what? This just means we have to find a date in the future and be like, come back to these things. I want to
Perfect.
leave with one more piece that we did reference that I don't leave people hanging. There's a poem from Josie Balka, and I apologize if I got her name wrong, that has kind of been making the rounds on social media. You noted that you had seen it as well. It was the one I saw was done by a Edmonton Oilers fan. And she just talks about how important it is to be a fan. And I got to tell you, this got me. I mean, this hooked me. I mean, I was like teary-eyed listening to this.
Mhm.
And by the way, that was not teary-eyed. I'm just choked up on water. I need a drink.
It's allergy
I'm
season,
not getting
baby.
emotional. Exactly. I'm not getting emotional telling you about getting emotional. I'm truly just like, I need a water.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, so this point that she had was about how important it is to be a fan, and I think it can steer teams in the mindset of like how important it is to build that community of fans. So I encourage everyone to go listen to this. I have both the Edmonton Oilers fan has this whole piece about her family dressing up and getting into costumes and going to games and doing the chants and how important it is to their family. Talks about how it gives a connection to them about what to talk about with fans, what their passions are, things to believe in. It doesn't mean you have to win or lose. It just means you have to believe in something. And we talk about in the water cooler, that nature of fan and where people a lot of people now feel divided, and this gives an instant community based on your love of this sports team. It gives that common language and a reason to gather and the chance to feel something collectively. And that may be heartbreak, it may be celebration, but all those things make you feel something together and how powerful that is. And I think there's a reference in the poem as well as that this is sort of hard to find now. Like that
Yeah.
community, that collective where you feel part of something in a really positive way. And maybe that's something we need, and that's something that teams can, it's something teams all kind of provide, but you could
Yeah.
really lean into that. And I think that's a really a great lesson and a great kind of retrospective to think about. And I threw that out to you because I know that community is really important to what you do. So I wanted just to throw that out to you and see if you had any
Yeah.
thoughts.
Oh man. Yeah, when I read the poem or watched a video of someone reciting the poem, I started tearing up too, genuinely. Um, this past week was kind of stressful at work. We had 6 games in a row, a lot of work in the front office before the game, and then I have to shift into performance mode, which is a mental and emotional like struggle sometimes because I'm like in work mode on my desk, emails, phone calls, and then I have to be like, oh wait, now I need to shift. So I was pretty stressed this past week, if I'm just being honest. And then I got a text yesterday from my friend who lives here in town. And just getting a text stressed me out because I thought, here's one more thing I need to reply to. And I love this friend. She's amazing. She's one of the coolest people I know. But even, I was kind of just in my head with helping. But her text was a photo of this little girl's shoe. And she said, Eric, I just have to tell you, she's a teacher, my friend. She said, I have to tell you, one of my little students came up to me this week and she was so excited because she got to meet Erik the Peanut Guy and get his autograph on her shoe at a game like on Tuesday. And I looked at the shoe and I feel bad, but for the life of me, I can't remember signing that shoe. This is weird to say, I probably signed 2 dozen shoes this week. I don't know what it is with shoes these days. Kids want me to sign their Crocs, which is always an honor. But that text alone kind of stopped me in my tracks and realized this is more important than my stress. This little girl came to a Dust Devils game and felt seen and felt a part of something. And it reminded me this past fall, the Mariners were in the playoffs, and I'm a huge Mariners fan. That's probably one of the areas of my life where I allow myself just to go all out. I wear the gear, I bleed the colors because it reminds me of my dad who passed away 9 years ago. It reminds me of my grandparents who've passed away. It reminds me of my mom and my sister when I was a little boy. And we would save up money and get to go to one Mariners game a year. That was our family vacation. And I'm getting choked up right now talking about it because that's what we looked forward to. Is what we did. Sorry, I didn't expect to cry on this episode, but um, the Mariners made the playoffs, and I'm 43 years old. And if you know anything about Seattle Mariners, they haven't really been in the playoffs much since I was like a teenager. Um, and my mom and I got to go to a game, and it just reminded me what it meant to be part of a community, a family, a region. Our whole region was on fire for this. Um, and listening to that poem that you've referenced and reading that poem, it just made me think of that little girl with the shoe and also me being that little boy going to a Mariners game with my family. So yeah, I apologize for this is not allergies. This is actually tears, but I have both right now, which is difficult.
Well, it's an emotional podcast. I wasn't
Yeah.
expecting this either. I have been known to cry on the podcast before. This is not
Good.
totally new for me, but Eric, this was so great. Thanks so much for. We got to do this again. Hopefully, we
Yes.
can both get through it dry-eyed.
No
But
promises.
yeah, exactly. In the meantime, I mean, just continue to be a fan. Keep telling those stories. I just want to take a brief second to summarize because we talked about a lot of great stuff here. Set the tone as a host and as a character at the games, connect the dots, tell that story, and build the community. I mean, that's really what you're doing out there, and it's a really critical role for your team and for your community. We talked a lot of rock and roll here. That's good.
Yeah.
A lot
Yeah.
of stress this week, but I'm glad we have this community to stop and share some love for our industry like we just did. Like I said, we're probably getting along here, so we will cut it off. But we'll do it
Okay.
again because we have a lot left on the table, a lot of meat on the bone is the way I like to say that.
Yeah. I can't wait. Thank you for what you do. Thank you for building this community, and can't wait to do it again.
Let's do it again. Hey, Erik, it was a perfect day for a podcast.
That's right. It was. Thanks, John.
Don't miss the daily water cooler on GameOps.com. Some really fun stuff this month. Every weekday, we post a promotion, a theme night, a giveaway, or an activation that got people talking. Last month, we surpassed 2,000 water cooler posts. So this is a trove of excellent work that we've been celebrating here at GameOps.com for nearly a decade. That includes summaries, posts, tweets, links, feedback, and discussions about promotions that got people talking, which is really what it's all about. Last month, we looked at some great script writing in Louisville. CL1 team took the time to make sure their promotion wasn't chopped and showed off all the team's riz with this script writing clinic. Plus, 2 notable anthem moments, one from the Charlotte Knights and another one from the Buffalo Sabres. One scripted, one spontaneous. You're going to want to see them both. And 2 valuable lessons. These were great water coolers. They weren't so much promotions as they were lessons. One we talked about with Erik on the podcast about being a fan, and the other was from Keegan-Michael Key, the actor. And anyone who wants to improve in anything that they do should take a look at this. Really insightful, really thoughtful information from that great actor, comedian, Keegan-Michael Key. See everything people are talking about at the water cooler Monday through Friday on GameOps.com. And that is a wrap for the May 2026 edition of the Party in the Back podcast here on GameOps.com. Thank you for listening. Keep an eye on the homepage, plus Twitter and Instagram for new content every week. I encourage you to visit GameOps.com for the latest ideas, inspirations, and the tools that will make your show shine. Big thanks to everyone who reads, listens, and supports us here at GameOps.com and for spreading the word about the podcast. Do us a favor. If you're on Instagram, give us a follow at GameOps.com, all spelled out, GameOpsDotcom, and Mascot Link. We're posting and reposting a ton of fun game operations content, plus some of those VIP fan experiences from the top mascots all around sports. Finally, huge thanks to our very excellent producer, Chad Gephardt. And thank you again for joining us. We'll be back next month on the Party in the Back with more talk and analysis about that fun side of sports marketing that we all love. For my guest, Erik Mertens, and for all the great Eriks in my world, Hewitt, Gephardt, McMahon, Lundquist, Hancock, Fuser, Baker, and Shear, this is John Kudo signing off. But please, let's keep the party going.
Thanks for joining us on the Party in the Back podcast. We'll see you next time.
Pedagogical tool for our listeners.
Pedagogical?
Yeah, that's stupid. I shouldn't have said that word. That's way too many syllables. That's a great
Erik, I'm a mascot.
I worked at a university for 10 years, and
I'm gonna go Google that.
Surrounded by academia. I did not fit in, but I learned some words.
The problem now is I want to go Google that, but I have no idea how to spell it. So this is going to be a week-long project.